No, there ain't no stopping us. Fly without a boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I be moving fast. Call me a shooting star. Let 'em know who you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. Time to show 'em who's in charge. Call me a shooting star. Didn't even get to cross. I said I'm moving too far. Get to glass. Looking at a shooting star. Got more than a couple of people going mad. I swear they're rooting hard. Tell them I be big in the game like she went and got them breast implants. I said I'm moving too fast. Didn't even get a glance. I'm ready to eat up track like I'm seated in a restaurant. If you had swag like mine, you know it's best to flaunt. We aren't hating because you want. Shining like it's neon. Rock like Kings of Leon. Shooting stars across the galaxy. I stand out, so don't be mad at me. Infiltrate, I'm with my strategy. When I turn up, then I just have to leave. Shooting stars across the galaxy. I stand out, so don't be mad at me. Infiltrate, I'm with my strategy. When I turn up, then I just have to leave. Yeah, shoot. Yeah, shoot. Yeah, shooting. Yeah, shooting shots. Shooting stars. Didn't even get to cross.
The first game we look for, Robbie. Tottenham away. When we got Tottenham away? Tottenham away. When we got Tottenham away?
How doing, everyone? Welcome to Tottenham Away. I just had to get changed because I wasn't wearing kit, and these two turned up in kit, and I was being upstaged. So, anyway, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the channel. We've got a great preview show tonight. I've got two wonderful guests. So glad to get these two on. Let me quickly introduce them. I've got Chris from the USA, from the NUFC Talk TV. Chris, how you doing, bro? You good?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me. Great to be here. Been here before. A lot of people might recognize me from back in the day, but welcome. Thank you to be here, man. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely welcome. Good to have you on. And also, I just recorded a podcast on his channel. Make sure you go and check that out at some point today. I've got John from the True Faith podcast. John, it's been 30 minutes. How are you again?
Yeah, just looking forward to the game on Sunday, and yeah, hopefully it can be anything like the last two games that we played at St James's Park. But you'll have to remind me of what the scores were because I keep forgetting, mate.
Yeah, what a great start to the show. The first heavy loss, I broke the remote control, and the second heavy loss, I was at the ground and I was broken. I was absolutely broken, getting bantered by your fans. So. But anyway, I don't think it's going to be like that this time. Famous last words. What I want to do is start Oh, by the way, guys, links to their channels are in the description and on the thumbnail. So make sure you subscribe and like to their channel. I want to start with the transfer window because it's live today and it's happening right now. Both clubs today have been a bit of a letdown, but I just want to get the lowdown with you guys. From last season to this season, are there any improvements? Are you a better team? Are you weaker? Where are you guys at in terms of transfers in your squad going into the game on Sunday compared to last season and for the rest of the season? Chris, I'll start with you because you're at the top, and then we'll go around. Or John, whoever. Just you can have the chat between yourselves. Where are you at with your squads and transfers?
Well, obviously, I'm not happy with what's going on. Lack of transfers. We've got a few, but I don't think those make any a difference. I've discussed this with fans. We got Osula from Sheffield. We got Vlachodimos from Nottingham Forest. We do have an excess of goalkeepers. We signed or re-signed Gillespie again, another 34, 5 plus goalkeeper to just be on the bench. I know people say there's a Geordie thing. If you go to Europe, you make it to Europe, and a local thing, I guess you can say. But that's why we signed them. Gambled on it. We didn't make Europe, so it doesn't make any difference. So we've signed some players. Some people might say that Lewis Hall is a signing. We already had him last season, but we did complete the signing from Chelsea. He's good. Obviously, he's good, but not overall happy. Of course, I don't think that most Newcastle United fans are content with the transfer window so far. And we spent 3 weeks, close to a month, trying to sign Gay from Crystal Palace, which would have been amazing, to be honest. I think he's elite. But 3 weeks, close to a month on one player, why weren't we trying to, in the same time, trying to sign another player, a right winger, which we need? All of a sudden, a couple hours ago, we throw in a bid for Elanga from Forest. Everything seems to be a desperate move. They're trying to bring somebody in, and it's just too late, man. I think, I mean, just naturally, I can criticize or put a blame on Darren Neal, CEO. He's in charge of everybody. Paul Mitchell, he's the DOF. He should be the one in charge of football. And I'm sure there's got to be some type of blame for Eddie Howe, but a lot of fans are blaming Eddie on the lack of transfers, and I just don't get it because he's not negotiating. He's not part of that. I'm assuming he says, "Well, I want this player. I like this player, so get him in if you can, or whatever. Give me an option." But I don't think he's the sole blame of this. I'd say really bad transfer window for Newcastle. So no, I'm not happy, man.
Yeah, I tend to agree with a lot of what Chris has said. I think the biggest issue we've got is there's been change in the summer to the structure. And actually Howe's press conference was quite telling today. He said the relationships are good and whatever else, and he said that he feels the club have been making an effort to do the right things. But I don't think you can pin this transfer window on Paul Mitchell because he's come in like part of the way through the summer, and also his reputation precedes him. This is a guy who potentially is going to be a really strong sporting director, or director of football, whatever you want to call him. Man United were chasing around Dan Ashworth, prior to Christmas last year. He then decided that he wanted to leave and go. And then we had kind of that saga, kind of dragging on until we could get a replacement in. So we've had some changes there. I think initially as well, Staveley and Gudusi were quite hands-on with a lot of different things. Now, when that was apparent that wasn't going to be the case after June, that's when they went at that stage. So I think there's been a lot of different changes that have gone on. We almost had the first part of the window up until June where we were frantically trying to do PSR gymnastics. We sold Minter, who, by all accounts looks like, Brighton obviously think he's class, otherwise they wouldn't spend 30 odd million on him. So there's that issue, but we had to sell him because if we didn't sell him, then we were going to get a points deduction, and you can't take a 10-point deduction and try and call yourself a serious European contender of a club.
That's right.
Vlachodimos coming in was absolutely nothing to do with us wanting Vlachodimos. That was all about PSR gymnastics. We essentially, the way that it's worked out is Anderson, we got 35 million for, but we've spent 20 million on Vlachodimos. Now,
Right.
in terms of the book value, I think Vlachodimos was bought for 8 million last summer by Forest. So his book value this summer, because he's on a 4-year contract, was 6 million. So they've banked 14 million profit, and then it's 7 million amortization against the Anderson fee for them. So they're still 7 million up on their book. We're 30 million up on ours, or something like that. It's just it was all done, as I say, purely for PSR. Which is why Vlachodimos hasn't been anywhere near the first team, because he's clearly not rated. John Ruddy's been on the bench the last 2 games. Like I'm not convinced that John Ruddy is the best second goalkeeper that we could have had. So I would say that Dubravka's better than him. So
Right.
But then he's been linked with move out. So there's elements of the squad that are weaker. I think the goalkeeping department, you could argue, is weaker. Lloyd Kelly coming in, for Paul Dummett leaving, is obviously strengthening the squad. I think Lloyd Kelly will turn out to be a very good signing in time. But there's 2 areas that we really need to strengthen this summer. Right centre half, which is obviously what we've tried to do the last 3 or 4 weeks with Gahey, and right winger. And we haven't addressed either of those
John,
issues.
I want to jump in on this because there's a question here saying, why do you need a right winger? Aren't Barnes, Almiron and Murphy any good?
So Barnes hasn't been played on the right-hand side, apart from, with the exception of about half an hour on Wednesday night. Barnes hasn't played on the right-hand side at all. He's come on the left. So Gordon is by far our strongest left winger. And for about half an hour, they switched and Gordon played on the left and Barnes played on the right. What a lot of fans are asked for, or have kind of said they'd like to see, is Barnes play on the left and Gordon on the right. To answer your question about aren't Almiron and Murphy good enough, from that point of view, not when you compare them to Gordon and Isak. And I think that's the point. It's not that they're not good. They are not at that level. They're not at that same level. Almiron and Murphy do not carry that same threat on the right-hand side that Gordon does on the left or Isak does through the middle. That's the clear opportunity to strengthen. And I think that's what's frustrating from a fan point of view, because we're spending 3 or 4 weeks messing on trying to make the Gahey deal happen. Now, I also don't subscribe to this opinion that
do you want me to speak to Daniel Levy and
on.
get Brennan Johnson or Timo Werner?
I saw that in the comment. No way.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't watch enough of them to make that judgment, right? And I'm,
really good,
Werner,
really good players.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. You're really selling it to me. I mean, Werner's been hit and miss, hasn't he? Really, in the Premier League, and I think that's clear. If you guys don't rate him, and Brennan Johnson, you've only signed last year, so if you're already trying to offload him, that's probably not a good way to go. But I just feel like we haven't looked to try and strengthen those areas, and maybe we have. Like, I think the other thing we have to really apply lots of context to is with Amanda and Murdad leaving, the leaks from the club have gone. So I think there's probably a hell of a lot of activity that we just don't know about because no one's talking about it, because Newcastle all of a sudden don't let that stuff leak, which is a good thing. That's how a professional club should act. But the Gahey public thing, that's all been from the Palace side. It's all been from them driving that.
Which is a clear you can see it, that Parish and Crystal Palace do not want to sell. They don't have to. They don't need money. But I think just looking at it from the business perspective, if I'm a Palace fan, I would also question, because managing the money is actually part of the job, I'm assuming, of Parish. And if he's never going to get 70 million for Gahey ever again, he's going to run out of his contract in the next 2 seasons. Next season, he'll have 1 left, meaning they'll have to sell him. They won't get 70 million, close to that. And so I think that's bad business on their behalf. However, they can say, well, we're going to have him 2 more years, and that counts as money as well, playing for the team, so, but I think it's a bad move. Look, they don't have to sell him, I guess, but I thought that I don't think they were ever going to sell, based on the reports everybody's is. Chris,
let me ask you guys a question, right? So clearly you're both not really happy with the transfers. You wanted a lot more, I get it. But having said that, you're not in Europe. You're just playing 1 game a week. hopefully, you know, for your sakes, you want to go on a good cup run. But playing less games when your main rivals for top 4 and top 6 are all in Europe except for Brighton, is it really that much of a big problem? You not bringing in players when you're not going to have to play as many games as the rest.
Well, you do want to make those signings because Newcastle, all fans want Champions League in Europe to be the norm, and that's got to be the goal, right? Not being in Europe. So the point is, when last season, for the first time in over 20 years, we made the Champions League, we couldn't keep up with it. Simple as that. You know, the style of play, the abnormal injuries. That I
but
would
Chris,
assume not going to happen again.
This is my point, though. This is my point. You're now back to that Newcastle
Right.
that had one game a week that got Europe. You're now back in that same position. Is your squad, regardless of transfers, able to do it again? Because you're not going to have as many games. This is how I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think you can, but then what do you do then? You know, listen, I'm gonna be playing. I don't think I speak.
You got to go big next summer.
Exactly. And so are you really going to bring in a top right winger, top center back? Because Shar is getting up there in age. He's still very much, you know, doing his thing.
Sven Botman returns soon.
Sven Botman has got injured, but he, you know, so I would look at Gihey. I don't know what John thinks, but I would look at Gihey when Botman comes as a replacement for Shar. Although he's been playing on the left side, but that's just where Crystal Palace wants to play him at. But I think you're going to put all your eggs in next summer to bring all this talent. I think that's risky. And let me, and then we can go to John if you want. But let me be really clear. I like Eddie a lot, but if we don't make Europe this season, I don't think he's staying.
And that's not necessarily on Eddie, right? Because I think the thing we have to remember here is that if I don't think the club can turn around and say it's been a failure not to qualify for the Champions League based on the business that's not been done this summer. You make a point, Stelios, right? And I get it, right? We did this 2 years ago. We managed to qualify for the Champions League, but everything went for us that year. Everything that could have gone well for us went for us that year. Apart from the League Cup final, everything that we wanted to happen that year pretty much happened. We didn't have the injuries that we had last season. We obviously we performed well. We managed to, but actually we didn't start the season particularly well. I think we had, I think we drew 5 or 6 of our opening 7 games. It was something ridiculous like that. But from that point of view, that's kind of the way you have to look at it. Like, it's not enough to say, right, well, it's all right, you've got less games, everything should be fine again. Like, everything else from a luck point of view has to go for you, and you can't rely on luck. You can't. Yeah. And if you've got 2 clear areas where your squad could improve, I think the expectation at this stage, when Yasser Almiron is on the Amazon documentary and he's saying our goal is to be number 1. I know that a lot's changed in that period of time in terms of regulations that have come in and kind of clubs realizing kind of how PSR really can impact their season in terms of points deductions. But you can't make that claim and then not sign anyone to improve the 2 gaping holes that are in your squad. Last year, our 2 gaping holes in our squad were right wing and right centre back. And we didn't address that either. Now, Eddie Howe said in pre-season, Harvey Barnes can't play down the right, but he didn't once. He was also out injured for 6 months. He couldn't have forecast that. I've seen the comment about Tonali. I agree. I think him coming back could make a massive difference and really help. And that's someone we didn't have last year. But that's not a signing for this year. That's a signing that we made last year. And then the other 2 signings we made were, again, I think they were opportunistic. I think Barnes was a bit opportunistic. Livramento certainly was, because Southampton got relegated. And Lewis Hall, I think, was, a signing for the future, and he's really improved. But again, there's 2 clear areas that we could have improved, and we haven't done that. What we've done is we've had to do some PSR gymnastics with Vlachodimos. We've brought Ruddy in as an additional keeper. And we've signed Lloyd Kelly, who, again, good free signing. We were unlucky with Tosin Adebayo, who ended up at Chelsea. Not to get him on a free, and I think that would have been a fantastic signing if we'd managed to get that over the line. But I think maybe the attraction of staying in London and the chance to play with another 41 quality players was just too much for him. And then Lewis Hall, as Chris has already mentioned, was already at the club last year, but he was on loan. It was just kind of a formality that he signed. So look, we haven't done enough to improve the squad. And look, in the Premier League, if you don't try and improve the squad, you're going to go backwards. If you stay still, you're going to go backwards. That's the way you have to look at it.
Yeah,
And,
West Ham and Brighton have had
there's
very, very good windows. Very good
They
windows.
have. And
So-
there's 8 teams in that conversation. And if you add West Ham and Brighton to that, there's 10, right? That's to try and get into 5, possibly, but needs to be 4, but potentially 5 if if clubs in Europe actually do well in Europe. So yeah, I'm that's my worry.
No, I hear what you're saying. It's funny you say. By the way, Tony Rodriguez, thank you so much. He's gifted a membership. So if anyone grabs hold of that, well done, Tony. Thank you so much for that. It's funny you say this because we're having similar conversations at Spurs that we got rid of, I think it's 12 or 13 players this window, and we brought in 5. And they're all kids, unproven, could be great, could be rubbish, and only one proven-ish player in Solanke. So I don't know what we've done any different from last season. I totally agree with you. If you don't keep pushing on, you get caught. Before you know it, Chelsea are back, Man United are back, Brighton overtake. For me, Brighton are my dark horses this year for top 4, definitely top 6. They spent £200 million, bought a lot of good players, and they've got no Europe like you guys, and I think that's going to work to their advantage.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we've got the similar issue at Spurs. We desperately needed number 6. We haven't done it. Desperately needed cover for left centre-back. Haven't done it. We need cover at left-back. Haven't done it. We wanted a right winger who could dribble, experienced. We brought in Odebert from Burnley. I mean, I don't know how that's going to turn out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not far off of what you're saying as well. We're in a similar position. The difference is we've signed 5 or 6 players. So the illusion of, but look, Spurs are buying, we're buying. But what have we bought? I think the ones we've bought come good in 2 or 3 years' time, if I'm honest with you. But we will see. We will see.
Well, I think about you guys is more surprising, to be honest, because you guys have 0 money problems, and so you should be able to just buy whatever you want, and you don't. So it looks more like an institutional thing. Like we're not gonna, I mean, I hate to say that your chairman
Enoch out is what you tend to get. So
well, I would hate to imagine your chairman Levy saying we don't care about football or trophies or winning anything. I mean, I would hate to think that that's the thought process. Maybe not. Maybe it's something else, another reason. But yes, it is surprising because you guys should be able to spend on top players.
Listen, Spurs with our stadium, the revenue we make, the way we're structured, we're a sleeping giant. If someone actually had ambition with what we can do, we could be unbelievable. But it does look, and it's been like this for a long time, we've got an ownership that's happy to get top 4, happy to make the money. I mean, we're building a hotel now, luxury hotel, 2 state-of-the-art luxury apartments behind the stadium. We've got a Formula 1 contract. We seem very corporate, not enough football. So, and a lot of rival fans, they say that to us as well. So when outside people say it, but look, our fans are divided on this, man. I could do a whole show just on this, and I don't want to do that. I want to talk about Newcastle Spurs. So let's talk about the game. We've got. I want to look at the league table quickly. So we're both on 4 points. We've both drawn a game and won a game. We both looked a bit shaky in one of those games. I mean, you guys against Bournemouth weren't too convincing, but you can say the same about us against Leicester second half. We've scored more than you. I think attacking-wise, we're looking better this season. But again, we've played 2 really poor teams, so it's hard to tell. Defensively, no one's really challenged us, so I don't know. I don't think you guys have played particularly well, if I'm going to be honest with you, boys. I don't think you 2 have played particularly well. But we're both tied, and it's points on the board that matters. What's your feelings going into this game? I go into this game with a little bit of confidence, only because of the way you're playing. Not so much because I really believe we're going to go up there and teach you a lesson, but I think it can be got at the moment. How do you guys feel about this game?
John, if you want to go, that's fine.
Yeah, I think I agree that we haven't started the season particularly well, but Eddie Howe teams don't tend to. If you look at the stats, we don't tend to start particularly well.
Yeah.
And I think we've got it in our locker to turn up against big sides, and we tend to do this. We tend to turn up against the top 6 sides. It's almost like we struggle, and this isn't just a like Eddie Howe's Newcastle thing, right? This has been a problem for Newcastle for years and years and years, that we seem to just not turn up against teams that we should absolutely slaughter, but then when the Cartel 6 or whatever we want to call them come into town, all of a sudden we're up for that game and we're up to try and prove a
Cartel
point.
6.
And yeah,
The Cartel.
yeah, or whatever you want to call them. But I think, but when those big sides come to St James's, that's when the levels get upped. So I do have, there's a couple of mitigating factors. I think obviously Sandro Tonali, first game back playing at St James's Park, back in the Premier League, that's going to be absolutely huge. And I think that'll have an impact on the atmosphere. I think the players will be more up for it. And Eddie Howe said it in the press conference today, the players will be more settled. The rumour is that every player in that squad had a price above their head because of the PSR issue. So everybody wasn't sure whether they were going to end up, at the 1st of September, that they were going to be here. So there is that element to it as well. So if actually all those elements come into play, potentially we've got a chance. But I just think that that we'll draw rather than win. That's kind of where my head is at the minute.
You think we draw, Chris? We spoke yesterday. You were confident. I think, was it 3-1?
Well, my prediction. No, I said 2-1. 2-1. Just because we do, like John was saying, we do tend to play better against teams that are in, I would like to say, in our level. I think again, Newcastle, Tottenham, Man U, Chelsea, West Ham are going to be fighting for the same thing this season. So I think it might work that way. But look, let's be honest here. For Newcastle United, the first game, the Shar and Diaz kissing foreheads was the headlines of the whole week. Nobody talked about how poor we were in that before the incident, and obviously after. Even after, I think you as a manager, obviously, you should prepare your team. What happens when we are 10 men against 11? That should be the norm, right? Not saying that you're going to play better or you're going to be elite. However, you can't play like we did. We scored on a counterattack. That was a single play, and it just happened that way. It was St. James's Park as well. The next one, everybody's talking about the handball, not handball, that Bournemouth could have beaten us on at the end of the game. We were poor. And so our form is not great. I don't think it's going to be high-scoring game. These high-scoring games happened between Tottenham and Newcastle later in the season. It's too early. Teams are not oiled up. Teams are not that good right now. Yeah, like you said, you guys scored a lot of goals, but as you said as well, I mean, not against super strong teams. So the jury's still out on both, in my opinion. The positive is we're playing at home, which can be a positive against anybody, really. But again, I think it might be a 1-1 draw or a 2-1 nil, maybe. And I'm just being positive because
he's changing his views now from yesterday.
I want to just come back to you on the Southampton point, though, because I agree we weren't great for the first half hour. Southampton played better. But the point I made on the previous show that we've just recorded was that when we went down to 10 men, I think we adapted and we adjusted to what we needed to do for that situation. And at the point when Cher got sent off, I felt really strongly that we'd probably get beat because the way that Southampton play is the perfect way to play against 10 men.
Yeah,
because they keep the ball really well and they so actually if you're chasing the ball as a 10-man outfit, so the fact that we managed to do that, we managed to grab the goal and we managed to kind of manage the second half, and the dark arts returned. Nick Pope goes down on the 82nd minute with an injury, so then the players can come off and get a last 10-minute kind of boost from the manager. I think you throw all of those things in. I think actually we managed that situation really well. We managed the game against Bournemouth to get the result. And now, look, we shouldn't have to manage games. We should go and win games, and I think that's the point. I think when I think about the midweek game, we started well. Obviously, got a goal, in the first 20 seconds. Fantastic start. I think we played pretty well up until Willett going off. We then
Yeah.
managed the game again, probably up until the last 20 minutes. And then again, we upped the intensity to finish. So I wonder if we're going to try and start strong, finish strong. And maybe that's the angle we go to. But we need to get goals in those periods where we're dominant. And that's the reason, I think on balance, we deserve to go through on Wednesday night. But yeah, I think the other thing to bear in mind is that good teams or great teams win games that they shouldn't win or win points that they shouldn't win. And I think, we got a point against Bournemouth when we probably shouldn't have got a point. We got 3 against Southampton when lots would argue we probably didn't deserve 3 against Southampton. And we went through against Forest, probably deserved to. So, actually, if we get to a point where we're playing on song, then we could be quite dangerous.
I think.
Or is that covering the cracks? Because that's something that I've seen happen at Spurs, where we say
it could be, but you have to wait and see about that. If we return to the same form,
we have to wait and see.
To that point, though, I do agree. One of the positive things, and I think could be a big positive, is we show personality, we show perseverance, and that's something that maybe last season or previously, or maybe the whole history, we couldn't go across the line. We couldn't manage games. We would start great, and then we would let them score again, lose the game or draw the game, whatever. So I think in these last 2 games, that's a positive you can take. That even being down a man. Now on the Southampton, though, the goal came quick after the red card. So maybe you could say, well, what if that didn't happen? Then could we have gotten the win later on? But that's ifs and buts. But so that's a positive, that we were able to manage games and manage their score. That's a big positive. So
where you guys say that your weakness is games you're supposed to win, you don't, and then when you play the bigger clubs, you turn it on. We're the opposite. Against the lesser teams, we get the job done, and normally it's quite convincingly. So when we play the top 10 teams, we just seem to implode, or we lose the plot, or our tactics get so well exploited by the managers. That's my only fear about this game. You're one of the top 10 teams, so this is where I get concerned. But again, I don't know. I've watched you, and I don't fear playing you this time. Does that make sense? I don't fear you, but I'm not. What's the word? I'm not confident.
You're not supremely confident. Yeah.
That makes sense. However, just looking at it from the tactical point of things, just the fact that you have a manager that thinks offense before defense and leaves spaces. If you leave Gordon, Isak, and even Murphy, if he plays, he's quick. Almiron is super quick. Now, whether Almiron is going to finish, that's another point. But regardless, this is a fast attack that can not be good for you. John, you were going to say
something. And that's what caught us out all last season, which is why I want us to play some good teams so I can see where we're actually at now. Because I don't know, we've played 2 teams that I expected us to beat. I mean, that Everton team we played is the worst Everton team I've seen come to Spurs ever. They were shocking. So,
yeah, the point I was going to make is that you have to beat those sides at the bottom of the table, and that can be really frustrating when we look at that. So if I think about last season, when we played Luton at St James's Park, we drew 4-4. Probably should have lost that game. There was other games we drew at home with Everton, and we played all right that night, but Everton was shockingly bad. Probably not as bad as they were last Saturday, but they were really, really poor. And if you think about that Liverpool side that finished 1 point behind Man City, the famed the best runners up ever kind of team, they got 60 points out of 60 points when they played the bottom 10. So good teams have to beat bad teams to be good teams, if that makes sense. And almost put that kind of, it then means that you've got a little bit more flex when you play the better sides in the league. And if you do drop your point here and there, it doesn't matter, because actually you've made that up with how you've done against those lesser sides. So, but that can be a frustration, definitely, when you think, you turn up against sides and you just think, well, how haven't we managed to get a result against these? We're much better than them. And that's been a bit of a criticism that really we sometimes struggle to break those sides down. We'll have a lot of the ball and we'll try and create chances, but then really when a team really sits in and tries to defend that way against us, we struggle getting behind. George made a fantastic point about the transition and about the fact that we have, our better players do benefit from that transition. If we get that really good long ball from the back, which is normally Share, but could easily be Bruno, and you've got either Isak or Gordon running onto that, a lot of the time that's going to create a very dangerous chance or a goal. So
let's bring up the teams. Let's bring up the teams because I listen. This is what I think you're going to do, right? You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think this is pretty much your back four, your goalie. I think your midfield three. I think Tonali will start. I've actually put Barnes in there because I think he's got pace, and you want pace. That's how you exploit us on the transition. So I think Barnes will start. Maybe Gordon's on the other side, like you lot want. Do you think this is a fair kind of starting 11 for you guys, or do you think there's going to be anything different to this?
Well, I would probably play this side, or close to this side. I think there's three areas where I don't think it'll match up. I think Trippier plays instead of Livramento. I think Longstaff probably starts ahead of Tonali, and Tonali might come on later on because he was knackered after 60 minutes. Though I'd love to see him start, and I think that would really lift the place. And I think that Almiron will play ahead of Barnes. That's what I think will happen.
You don't think Murphy will start ahead of Almiron?
Possibly, but I think Almiron looked all right when he came on, and I think Murphy's looked out of his depth in the first two games. So I think Eddie might make that change to start.
I agree. I would like to see more of Barnes on the right side, although it's not technically. Well, it could be if he was a regular winger, but he's not. He goes inside a lot, so his ideal position would be on the left, to be honest. But Gordon is done well there, so it's kind of what Eddie wants to do there. But I would like to see Barnes playing from the start, just as an experience. Now you might say there's no time to experience when you're playing Spurs, but I would definitely change Lewis Hall for Kelly on this game, though. I think Kelly played on the left as a left back for against Bournemouth. I don't think he did too well, and I think Lewis Hall has done that. And when Lewis Hall came on that game, totally different game.
Yeah, but I think what Hall gives you, Hall does give you more of an attacking threat, but he's not as good a defender as Kelly. Now, we spoke to a Bournemouth fan on just after we signed him, and he was absolutely devastated to lose Kelly. He thinks that he could play for England. He thinks he's that good. But the other thing he said is he doesn't know whether his best position is left centre half or left back. He says he's just as strong as both, and he can get up and down the wing. So I think Kelly's a good shout to start there in terms of what the manager will do. I do like Lewis Hall, Chris. I'm not shooting you down, mate. Yeah. But I just think Kelly gives you a little bit more security at the back. And I think at a time when you've got, with the best will in the world, you've got Emil Kraft playing right centre half, I think it's a sensible place to put Kelly. I think in terms of Trippier, the reason I say I think he'll play is I think he's looked much, much better than Livramento has at the start of this season. I think he's done enough to earn his start. And I can't see him leaving the club in the next 2.5 hours. So I think if he's going to be around, I think he'll play.
What's your thinking on your midfield, guys? How confident and happy are you with that midfield? Those three. How good is it?
As Geordies would say, man, that midfield is proper. You know what I mean? That's it's Guimaraes, Tonali. You see Tonali when he came back, man. He was a little bit winded,
He looked possessed on Wednesday night.
Oh man, it's just quality on those passes, man. Joe Linton, a machine. No complaints there. Hopefully, Longstaff doesn't play. That's the thing.
I think the thing with Sean Longstaff is I think he does the messy stuff, right? And I think actually against Southampton he played quite well in that situation. He's exactly the kind of player you want on the field. You just want someone who's going to get stuck in. I think Tonali, what we've seen from him as well is we've seen a real physicality. So if you've got Joe Linton, who's really physical, and you've got Tonali, who's really physical, and then you've got Guimaraes, who isn't afraid, or Guimaraes, sorry. Yeah. But he's not afraid to throw himself in, as well as, he's got the skill and the flair and the talent that he has. The other midfielder I'm really excited about that we're not talking about, and I hope he gets fit very soon, is Joe Willock.
Oh yeah,
because I tell you what, the difference he made in the last 20 minutes at Bournemouth, where all of a sudden we looked more direct.
What's happened to Willock, guys?
So Willock got injured on Wednesday night. We hope it's just like a dead leg or something, but he'll not be fit for the weekend. But he was obviously scored the goal in the first 20 seconds on Wednesday night, but also he just carries the ball forward more urgently than anyone else does in the side. I think he just gives you something a bit different. And I have to mention, because I've talked about Joe Willock, I have to talk about that assist for Alexander Isak for the for the goal a couple of years ago at St James's Park. It's one of the best assisted goals I've ever seen.
Oh, don't remind
he's got
me.
such skill about him in his locker. Like honestly, I think a lot of people would say bad things about Steve Bruce. He pushed for that permanent transfer after he'd been in on loan, and now that he's got a coach who is going to invest the time in him, he really could reach some heights if he can stay fit. He's absolutely has to be in the conversation, being England squad's Willock. He's that good.
He definitely looks better playing for Newcastle than what he did at Arsenal. Arsenal, he showed flashes, but at Newcastle, he showed some really good moments. So that'd be listening. No doubt, if you can get him fit, it's a big bonus for you. I want to bring up the Spurs starting 11. What I think we're going to do. Not that I agree with it, but it's what I think we're going to do. But our back four and goalie is pretty much the same every game. This never changes unless there's an injury. I'm happy with it. It's good. It works. The tactics work against it sometimes, but as individuals, they're good. I think what we're going to do is we're going to do what we exactly did against Everton, where Basuma is going to be almost the deep midfielder. Madison will be the centre mid, and Kulu will be the attacking mid. And Kulu and Madison will interchange roles. I don't know if this is physically strong enough to go up against Guimaraes, Tonali, and Joe Linton. Madison tends to get bullied. Kulu is strong, but not necessarily quick. Basuma is deceptively strong, but he loses focus. So I'm confident in their ability, but I'm not confident in the physical battle that's going to happen between you guys. And that's where I feel if you do get the edge on us, that's where it's going to happen. It's that midfield battle.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
I think I would take our midfield ahead of yours every day of the week. I really would.
Yeah.
Just because I think, you've got the talent and flair, and also the naughtiness of Guimaraes. And then you've got Joe Linton, who he just suffocates midfields. He just does. And then if he starts Tonali, you've got skill and you've got strength there as well. And even if Longstaff does play, again, I think he does some of the less flashy, dirty stuff that other midfielders just don't do. But I would still take, Joe Linton, Bruno, and Longstaff ahead of Basuma, Madison, Kulusevski in terms of that physical battle bit. I think that's, Basuma, I think you're right about Basuma. I think he's the physical one, but you're right. Madison could get bullied. I really like Kulusevski, as we were talking about earlier, but I probably like him in a more advanced position. I wonder if is it not more of a, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously you watch them a hell of a lot more than I do. Is it not more of a double pivot that he'll play? So you'll play Basuma and Madison, or Basuma and Kulusevski, and then almost play three behind Son?
If I'm really honest with you, we're still trying to understand what Ange does, because it's literally a case of, right, everyone in their box, just go. And Basuma sometimes is further ahead than Madison. Sometimes Madison is picking up the ball off the goalkeeper when we play out from the back. You're thinking, why is the number 10 in our box when we're playing it out? It's a very, very
fluid.
Yeah. At times you're just trying to understand where everyone's playing. Porro, our right back, he'll be almost on the penalty spot. Udogie will be just hanging outside the box, and these are our wing backs. They go up, then they invert in, but really high up, not into the midfield, but almost just behind the striker. So look, I don't know. I will say this, and I think George hits the nail on the head where he says, if you put Longstaff and Madison, you stop a lot of our chance creation, because the first two games, Madison's got 2 assists. A lot of our play goes through him. A lot does go through Madison. If you shut down Madison, you're halfway there to beating us, I think, or at least stopping us, no doubt. So maybe Longstaff is a solution. And across the front three, he's going to start Johnson because he loves him, and a lot of fans have turned on him. Johnson. Son will play as the number 9 because Solanke's out, and now Richarlison's injured as well. So we don't have a striker. It's going to be Son. And Odebert, he's better than he's got to be. I mean, we're better than Werner. He started Odebert last game. He looked lively. He looked very confident. Wanted the ball. Wanted to take on the man. But there wasn't actually any end product. But it was his first game. He's 19. We don't know. He could be good, but he could be someone that needs a bit of time. I think you've got more experience in your front three that are actually good as well. But Son's clinical. He's so clinical.
World
if he
class.
gets one chance, one goal, two chance, definitely one goal. So it's very interesting. It's going to be because your defense is slightly weaker, isn't it? So I think we're going to get chances against you guys.
Well, I hope not too many.
Look, I think leaving Son available for anything is going to be a mistake. But also, if you leave Isak alone, that's going to be a mistake on you. So I think we're pretty matched up there. I would definitely, right now at this moment, take your defenders, your center backs over ours. Vendeman and Romero, really good stuff. But it's so. But I don't think you're going to be defending much, or it might leave those guys in a disadvantage attack with your attacking football. So I don't know how many times Van der Ven can run back. We've seen it against Isak again, so that wasn't a good picture. So be an entertaining match.
What I will say really strongly, really quickly, is Dan Burn is playing his natural position at left centre half, and all the time he's playing at left centre half and not left back. I feel a lot more confident about Dan Burn being in the side. I think he's a solid replacement for Botman. He's not as good as Botman. I would never play him ahead of Botman, but he's a solid replacement for him. Emil Kraft is filling in at right centre half, and he's really more of a right back. And that just shows you why, it's probably another reason why we were prepared to make the offers that we did for Mark Gahey, even though we didn't get him in, because actually that really kind of strengthens that. Lascelles is out with an injury as well, so he would normally be the natural replacement in that situation. But again, you'd still be looking to strengthen ahead
a bit
of
like
Lascelles,
when we played Ben Davies at centre back. When Ben Davies comes at centre back, he can do the job, but we're so much weaker with him there. It's the same thing.
Personally, I'd rather play Kieran Trippier at left centre half than play Kraft there, because I think he's got the right mentality for it. He's got the right intelligence to play that position. But at the same time, I'm not Eddie Howe, and he watches training a hell of a lot more than I do.
Do you know what? I don't think you should play Trippier in this game, guys. I don't think you should play Trippier in this game. I don't think he's got the pace for it. And do you know what? One thing we do have is pace in those wide areas. And they'll get the beating of Trippier. Can I ask you one question? When you came to our ground and we beat you 4-1, I know you had a lot of injuries that day. Who was your goalkeeper? It wasn't Pope, was it?
Might have been Dubravka.
It was Dubravka. It was.
Game back.
He had a nightmare.
Yeah.
So you've actually got a better goalkeeper compared to the last time you came to our ground. Pope's
it's not, honestly, it's not even a competition. And that's half the frustration. We've signed like 2 goalkeepers this summer, and neither of them are an improvement on Dubravka, never mind Pope. And what we really wanted was
really?
Really. Like Vlachodimos hasn't been in the squad. John Ruddy's been on the bench the last 2 games.
Right.
I don't think John Ruddy's an improvement.
I don't even know who these players are.
Exactly.
So John Ruddy, he played in the Premier League with Norwich.
I remember him. I do remember him.
Yeah, we signed him from Birmingham, and he's been on the bench the last 2 games. Vlachodimos is previously played at Benfica, and apparently we were interested in him just after the takeover, and we were seriously considering. It didn't happen. He ended up signing for Forest. I went on a podcast for them just after they'd signed Elliot Anderson, to kind of talk around that, and when it then leaked about Vlachodimos, and they were like, "Oh, this is great! Like they've done a genius turn getting rid of him." And I'm thinking, "Hang on, this is not what I want to be hearing about a player we've just signed." And he's
Nah,
played in a
not at all.
couple of it's not great, is it? And he played in a couple of preseason games, but then he hasn't been anywhere near the squad. And the rumor is that apparently, and I kid you not, he was on trial. We've spent 20 million, like officially, we've spent 20 million pound on a goalkeeper, our record signing as a goalkeeper in our history, and he's on trial. And the only reason we've done that is because we wanted to get rid of Anderson. 15 million plus Vlachodimos. It's not 35 million pound.
I can beat that. So today, just when you think that's just a ridiculous story, I can beat it. I think I can. Today, we let Lo Celso go. So he's gone back to Real Betis, the club we signed him from. Right, he's gone back.
Right.
And part of the deal is we have signed this American kid from Betis called Johnny Cardoza. But we've signed an agreement that if we don't actually want him, we have the refusal to not sign him. So he's not actually coming, but we've got the agreement to not sign him in case we don't want him. Make sense of it. Anyway, you want this random another kid. But listen, it's not just your club, guys. I know it feels that way sometimes. We do some really dumb shit as well. Believe you me. Anyway, I just want to end the show by saying, asking you, not saying, what do you expect from Newcastle this season? Like, look, I think it's fair to say you're not signing any more players. We're not signing any more players. We've got the January window. We don't know what's going to happen, but January is always a weird one anyway. Not much gets done. What do you feel now? So you're not in Europe. You're just playing Premier League. You've got the domestic cups. The teams you're up against, they're all in Europe except for Brighton. With the squad you've got, obviously Sven Botman's going to come back at some stage, and Willock, like you said. What are you feeling for this season, guys? Is it top 4? Do you think you'll get top 6? Can you get to another cup final? How do you feel?
Well, we're gonna have to. There's no.
Would you start off by saying?
Well, there's no feeling. Look, I think we can do it again, but there's really no options. I mean, there's no other options in my opinion. It's got to be Europe to keep the fans happy, to keep to keep the players happy. Because how can you tell Isak, Gordon, and all these guys to stay if we're just gonna be, not playing in Europe, which is what these guys want to do, especially the Champions League. So to keep everybody happy, you have to qualify for the Champions League, or else it can't be good enough.
What do you think, Chris? What do you think you'll do? What's your kind of prediction or?
Well, I think we'll finish Champions League.
Really, you think we'll get top 4?
Yeah.
So a lot of competition this year: Villa, Brighton, Spurs, Chelsea. Chelsea.
We've done it before, though. In a horrible season, we finished 7th with injuries and all that stuff. So I think it can be done.
I think you've got a great chance of getting back into Europe. Which competition I don't know, but without playing Europe, I think that's a massive bonus for you guys.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with you, Stelios. I think Europe's more realistic than top 4 or top 5. I just feel like we haven't strengthened enough where we need to, and I totally get your argument that we're not going to play in Europe, and that's really going to help. But I mean, look at Arsenal and Man City. I think they're streets ahead of everybody at the minute. I think that's your top 2. And I don't think we can get away from that. Chelsea, there's no telling what's going to happen with them. I mean, I do think they're centimeters away from imploding, but at the same time, what was it, 6-2 at the weekend against Wolves, or 6? I can't remember what the score was. But 6-2. So they're obviously still decent. Liverpool have obviously started the season quite well as well, despite the fact that they've not done a lot of business. But actually, Slot's gone in and I think he said in his own words he's not had to change a lot with Klopp going, which probably helps him quite a bit.
Chiesa for 10 million is a brilliant signing, I think.
Potentially, yeah.
And 10 million. Wow. Peanuts.
I mean, I'm not being funny. We've talked about needing a winger tonight, and is that not a deal that we could have potentially looked at doing? I think one point on the transfer stuff, I know we talked about it before, is it does get harder the better you become to sign players that are going to improve your squad, and that is a valid argument. I think that pool then shrinks in terms of the players that you can get that are going to make you better. And I absolutely subscribe to the don't just sign someone because you want to bring a man in. You need to bring the right person in. That's going to improve you. But yeah, my prediction would be that we are going to finish in a European place. I think if we don't finish in a European place, I think Eddie Howe will lose his job. What I would love to happen is I'd love us to go on 2 really good cup runs. And I've said to you before, Stelios, I would take winning a cup and finishing anywhere in the league.
I'm the same as you.
Just win a trophy. Give us that day. Give us a chance to go back to Wembley and avenge what happened in 23, because you know what it is, that day was heartbreaking, because that's the worst Man United side in my lifetime. We couldn't beat them, and they turned up like it was a business trip, won the game and went. We went, enjoyed the occasion, had a fantastic party, but when it came to the match, we bottled it, and that's what we need to do. We need to win a trophy. I don't care if it's the League Cup, I don't care if it's the FA Cup. Get us a trophy, lads.
I actually thought, do you remember the year you went to the FA Cup final with Sheeran? I think you lost, is it 2-0 to Arsenal?
98.
98. I actually thought you lot were going to win that final. Stupidly, of course. I thought you were going to do them, but
I thought we'd do it in 99 against Man United. So I'm the bigger idiot, because obviously they won the treble that year. But that was the year I felt like we lost. Obviously, we didn't do it in 98, and I was like, when we got back in 99, I thought this is bound to happen. And then the following year, Stelios, we got the semi-final and played Chelsea, and we should have won that game, and we would have played Villa in the final at the last game at the old Wembley. Last club game at the old Wembley, and I think we'll probably win that game. So, I think we've had near misses over the years.
You're like us. We're the same. Semi-finals, finals, lose, and just.
You've still. Let's just count the trophies you've won since 1969. In comparison, I think you've got a slightly better record than us. So
the 80s were good for us. The 90s, okay, we picked up 2 trophies. I can't complain. 2 trophies in 10 years is kind of the average for Spurs, but the last 30 years has been shocking.
2007 was it that you won the league, or 2008?
2008, beat Chelsea. Jonathan Woodgate deflected header went in the back of the net.
Love Jonathan Woodgate. I won't have a bad word said about him.
Yeah, of course. He played for you boys, of course. No. Listen, we're going to wrap it up there. John, Chris, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really enjoyed it.
Problem,
when are you guys next on? Is there any shows you want to promote or let people know about?
Yeah, True Faith podcast. The free podcast will come out on Sunday on it'll be either Sunday evening or Monday on free podcast channels and YouTube. So check it out.
Yeah. And for me, NUFC Talk TV, live coverage 24/7, multiple shows a day on everything Newcastle United. So NUFC Talk TV. We're going to do a 3-hour show on an empty, quiet deadline. So you tell me that's not dedication. I don't know what it is. But something might happen. Something might happen. But yeah, thank you, Stelios.
No, listen, both welcome. Thanks for coming on. We'll be back on Sunday when we smash Newcastle 3-0. We'll be back on Sunday night to discuss, analyse, break down the game after we play Newcastle. Come check us out at 9 p.m. Otherwise, Chris, John, thanks again. God bless you both.
Thank you, man.
Pleasure.
Everyone, make sure you subscribe to the boys and like and subscribe to this channel too. We're out of here. Have a good one. We'll see you on Sunday. Take care.
The first game we look for, Robbie. Tottenham away. When we got Tottenham away.